Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Get in Tune. I'm Michael Gracia, and I've got a great show tonight. I got a fantastic artist coming on that I'm going to get to talk with. Been looking forward to it. Um, first, just want to make a couple of announcements. In a second, I'm going to show you this week's Wiz, which came out today. You can always follow at the Wiz Comic, which is below there. Um, but first, I want to say I hope everyone made it to the Spiders Web today in Yonkers. At 887A Yonkers Avenue. The Fugitive Poem guys there, Christian DiMatteo and James Lyons, were there with their new issue of Containment Breach, their anthology book. It is a fantastic book. Look up fugitivepoems.com if you were not at the Spiders Web to get their new copy or did not support their Kickstarter. Now, let me just show you guys today's Wiz. Hold it up for about a minute, maybe a little less than a minute. Here we go. And share. And I think that's enough time to read. Stop the share there. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Now, let me tell you about my guest. You know what? It's weird. I've met her a couple of times at shows. Never actually had a chance to talk other than just say hi. And but I've followed her on social media for quite a while, and I am a fan of the work she puts out. I think I'm excited because she does so much, with what she does, and I'm gonna let her talk. I'm just gonna mess it up if I keep doing an intro here. So let's just bring on EMILY REE. Hello.
Hi there.
How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It's great to be here tonight. How are you
Thank you.
doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for coming on. So you guys in the audience know if you have questions, just drop it in the comments. Happy to pop them up on screen. Ask Emily questions. So before we get into your work and talk about
Mhm.
what you do, I always like to. Oh, we got someone watching from Europe. It's 3 a.m. here in Europe. I don't know what part you're in, but thank you for tuning in.
Thank you for coming out tonight. Oh my
And
goodness.
we got also, what's that? I can't read the name, but there you go.
Hi
And
guys.
somebody named Caesar gives you a smile. So that is great. So how I like to start my shows for people who have don't know about you is tell us, you know, how you got into comics. Like, you know, did you read them growing up, or just whatever? I want to hear your story.
Oh gosh. So I can't really remember a time in my life when I didn't love comics. I loved the funny pages. I loved Snoopy. I loved Garfield and Foxtrot, and I loved comics. And one day, I don't know, I was like, I could make this. And kind of famously, I wanted to do this before I could really write. So
Hmm.
I would draw these comics and I would go bother my cousin, who's 5 years older than me, and ask her to write the words for me. And we were a team until I could write by myself. So I don't know, I have some kind of weird compulsion to do this.
Don't we all?
I was gonna say that's how we all get into this. You
Yeah.
can't do this unless you have a weird compulsion to want to keep doing it.
Yeah.
But I digress. It was newspaper comics, and then one day I was introduced to manga on a family trip to Washington D.C., and that was it. Like I was off on a whole other thing, and around the same time I started reading web comics, and that was it. I started posting web comics online when I was like 12 or 13. They were
Wow.
awful. Um, they were good for little kids, but
Yeah.
this was in the early 2000s, and I used to post them on drunkduck.com, and there was a famous like thing where like the a check for the server didn't go in over New Year's, so the server dumped all the comics. So all of
Oh
the
no.
comics I made when I was a young person are gone, which is like a good and bad thing. I have physical copies of some, but either way, then I started again, posting there, posting on Tumblr. I went to school for fine art, but I was making comics the whole time. And once I was out of school, I started trying to do it a little bit more seriously.
Nice. We got another comment. Someone says it's that stubborn impulsion to do this is nonsense. It's such a, I don't know.
I know, why else would we do this? There's probably something wrong with us, but it's a good thing.
Hey, listen, I think all of us start out the same way. Although unfortunately, kids today aren't starting on the funny pages.
No.
You know, that was how I started. I mean, I'm not going to turn my camera, but to the left of me or the right for you guys, you know, screw it. Here you go on top of my bookcase. Those are all newspaper strip comics up there. That
Awesome.
you know, collections of those, and I got other stuff. But I got into the supers. It's funny, manga I started reading maybe about 5 years ago. So it was for me it was hard because of just getting used to reading backwards. But once I got the hang of it, I fell in love with reading you know, with reading manga. I enjoy it. Do you remember what your first manga was?
Yes, it was technically there were a couple I had dabbled in, but the one that just set me off was Bleach. I love Bleach so much, and that's often a controversial answer because a lot of people who have really intense feelings about Shonen Jump comics will be like, that's the worst one. It just looks nice. And I'll be like, listen, it is not the worst one. And also I love it. Like it's perfect. I don't care about anyone else's opinions on it.
You know, but you shouldn't. As long as you love it, that's the important thing, you know? I feel like I've shrunk on the screen here. Yeah, no, listen, I couldn't even tell you what my first manga is because I've read on and off for years, but I don't know, there's just something about the way the storytelling goes. But I did want to say, you sent me a few different photos for what I was going to use as the headshot for the ad. And one of them had your bookcase in the back, and there were a bunch of Bleach. So I'm like, I knew you were a Bleach fan.
So the first two, Bleach 1 and 2, which I'm staring off in this direction, are the ones I got on that family vacation in Washington, D.C. There used to be a Borders in Union Station in Washington, D.C., and we ate breakfast and walked in, and my mom was like, just pick 2 books. Do you like comics? And I don't know. I went to those, and my mom was like, oh, the art's really pretty. So I bought them, and that was it. And the first, so a convention I love to do is Small Press Expo, and that was the first time I'd been back in the DC area since that trip. And that trip was in the early 2000s, and this was like 2017. And I brought those 2 comics with me just to do some. I didn't even read them. I just wanted them in my bag, just as like kind of this full circle moment thing.
That's nice.
And I love them.
Oh, that's great. I've actually never been down to that show. That's one of those shows I always wanted to check out.
It's so good. I have a table this year. And it's just they're the nicest people. They feed the cartoonists. They feed us more than once. And there's a party at night, and it's great. I love it.
You know, if it's the one I'm thinking of, I have been on the emails. I don't even know how long, probably since the late 90s. Because I started getting into comics in 97, like in the sense of drawing and doing like indie stuff and stuff.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, I unfortunately wasn't steady as much as I would like, but it's fun. I love it. I learned a lot. I learned all the mistakes by the time, I was 21 in 97. So I've learned all my mistakes by the time I was like 25, in the sense of doing shows and setting things up. And I learned, and I mean, things change and go on, but like, it took me a few years before I started making any kind of cash. And it was
harder then too.
Yes and no. I think having the access to the internet, like, because there's obviously an age difference. You're much younger than I am, and when you were drawing those comics for the web comics, you were young in the world of the internet. You were just experimenting and having fun, and this was like a new toy for you. Kind of. For me, I remember being like at 95 and I'm looking for jobs. I'm 19 years old and I'm using it already for job hunting, you know? So
That
there
is
was
fair.
there's a big, even though, listen, I will say some of my first jobs were, you know, in the late 90s was actually doing flash animation work that
Ooh,
was appearing on the web when I was like 19 and 20.
that's awesome.
Yeah, no, I loved it.
OG
And
stuff. That's awesome.
I love it, but I didn't do like the web comics until later. I didn't get into them until it, and I think people who grew up on it like you did had a better advantage because you were able to build an audience
Oh yeah.
much earlier, when as opposed to when I had to do the shows. The way I had to build an audience back then was get to a show, pay three
I
hundred
know it.
dollars for 2 days, and you know, just for the table and more for whatever, just to hopefully have. And printing, oh my god, print on demand. When you guys, I mean, you guys were
I've
in the
heard
world
horror
of,
stories.
I used to have to buy 1,000 copies of my book.
That's what I heard about.
And yeah, I'm
That's
so
so
old.
scary. No, 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 no.
It's
Listen,
okay,
listen.
I'm joking.
No, when I was a dumb child and I was like, I am the greatest. I read Bleach. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to print my comics. I like Googled how to do that and I found someone's blog and they were like, do not do this. The lowest print quality I could get was 3,000 copies and they are currently in my parents' shed,
Yeah,
like rotting. And I was like,
yeah.
horrifying.
I
So
got
I didn't
I
know.
got so he says, yep, I have printed copies of boxes I haven't taken out of my car since moving. Let me tell you, when I moved out of my parents' house, when I was
Mhm.
getting married and I was moving, I still had like boxes, and I just told them use it as kindle in the fire.
Oh.
I'm like, what else do you do? I tossed them. I kept if I can reach it real quick. Actually, we also, before even doing conventions, we used to throw out ash cans. This is my very first ash can of
Yo,
my
that's
character Plunger
awesome.
Pup. It's about a dog who fights crime with a magic plunger.
I
And
love it.
thank you. I'd like to bring him back one day. But then these were the first. Well, these what is it? One, two, and then three. I literally had 3,000 copies in total of one of each book here.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it
That's
was.
a lot for a floppy copy.
Yeah,
Ashcan.
it was. It was a whole different era of comics. So I think you guys had it a bit easier
Oh
with the
yeah.
web comics and now print on demand sites, which I'm actually going to be taking much more advantage of, and something I'm going to talk to. I want to ask you about a little later with
Absolutely.
that. But I mean, listen. So you took the manga, you took all this stuff, and you've developed a style that I'm looking at on my other monitor here. That really has that anime or manga influence in there. Let me ask: are you more of a manga reader than an anime viewer, both, or?
I definitely read more manga.
Mhm.
I love anime though. I don't have a lot of time to like enjoy it. Like I have to have it going in the background, but with manga I can sit there and like really like enjoy it, whether it's a book or it's an app or something. But
Yeah,
I love them. I just love the art. It's two different art forms, but they're
yeah.
united, and I love that.
No, I get it because I actually prefer to read the mangas than actually watch the shows. I only watch the shows if I know I don't have time to read. You know,
Fair enough. Oh, I get
that's
that. Well, this is just a thing, and going back to Bleach again, because apparently
mm,
that's what I'm talking about tonight. The original Bleach anime looks terrible. It's if I had been introduced to that instead of the manga, which has this beautiful line work and this fashion and just the contrast, I would never have liked this. I find that a lot of people who have really strong bad opinions about Bleach have only ever seen the anime. And in the newer season, that like the brand new, like out of left field new season that just came out, looks so much better, just significantly
does.
better. But
I'll be honest. I never watched it. I never even read it. It was just one of those that I haven't had a chance to.
that's fair.
But I used to teach college. I taught college like regularly for about 16 years, 17
That's
years.
awesome.
And I taught so much stuff, basically the entire Adobe suites, visual storytelling, all this. And visual storytelling was one of my favorite classes. I also taught, drawing. And one of the things, and some of my old students sometimes watch this and will comment and say how much I hated anime or manga. And the truth is, I never did. The problem was I was when I'm teaching, I feel my job is to prepare them for the real world, and if they want to be character designers, they need to be a little more flexible. So I kind of outlawed manga in my classes just to get them out of the habit so they can learn to draw better, and or not better, but learn to draw differently
Yeah, I
and in
understand.
different styles, and open them up. But yeah, man, that stuff was fantastic. But I remember having students coming in and talking about Bleach, whether having the manga, having the talking about the anime. It was a big thing.
It was.
It was a very big thing. Let me just go to the comments. I guess this is about Bleach. The 1,000 year blood war is a huge improvement.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the new season. That's
the new season.
Yeah, because like it ended in like 2016, and then like last summer, the summer before, they were like, guess what, guys? We're actually gonna finish. They finished without one final arc. They're like, guess what, guys? You earned it. Okay. It's the 20-year anniversary, and everybody was happy.
Nice. That's cool. I'll have to check it out sometime. What streaming service can I find it on?
It's on like Hulu or something. It's on a very strange one.
Okay, I'll check Hulu out.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like I think I'm probably wrong here, but I think it's one of those weird ones where like technically Disney owns some of the rights now, so it's in that hub.
I think Hulu was one of those channels that kind of all the major companies went in together, but Disney owned the majority or something of it, something like that.
What a mess.
Yeah, it's on Hulu. So yeah, I'm looking at your work on the side, and I'm really enjoying what I'm seeing. Now, before I get into just talking about your work, you have a comic that you were doing for a while. I assume you still do, called Anarchy Dreamers.
You got it.
Okay. Now I'm just looking at it here, and I just love it. So tell me how this story came about, this comic, because this was your first webcomic, correct?
This was my first serious one.
Yeah, outside of the 12-year-old stuff.
So Anarchy Dreamers is interesting because there was an original version of Anarchy Dreamers that I did straight out of college. Like I graduated and I went home and started working on it. Mm-hmm. And that one, it got to like 100 pages or something, and I was like, this isn't working. And then I restarted it, and that was like that's what you see today. But there's a like Anarchy Dreamers universe here, and it started with a different webcomic called Koji Takahashi Stops the World, which is one of the main characters for Anarchy Dreamers. And that one still exists on Drunk Duck, now known theduck.com. And it's one of those things where if you read it, you wouldn't think it was like a prequel comic that is like, oh snap, wait, this didn't end. It just goes on to something else.
Yeah.
And that only ran for 100 pages over 4 years. I did 1-ish page a week while I was in school, sometimes less. But anyway, so Anarchy Dreamers and this whole other universe that all my other comics jump off of has kind of an upsetting origin. I'm going to warn you. So I basically started this comic. I started with Koji Takahashi Stops the World, and there's this like magic system that's clearly happening, but it's not explained, and that's entirely on purpose. And as I'm working on the comic, I had a couple of I had tragedies happen in my life. I'm in college, and one of my very good friends, who was a little younger than me, who I'd been on the cheerleading squad with, took her own life, and it just. No one, 2 weeks before graduation, and we were just dumbfounded, and it got me, that put me in a weird spot. And then I had a classmate, I went to a very small school, die in a really preventable, tragic car accident that had to do with ice on New Year's Eve. And it was just one after another, and I was sitting here and I was like, this is just not fair. And I'm working on this comic that starts with a car accident, and I'm like, I want to do something with this concept of getting a second chance, because it's clearly not your time. You're too young. It was an accident. It wasn't supposed to go this way.
Yeah.
And that builds from there. And that sounds, it's really sad. And it's been over 10 years now, so I could talk about it like this, like with a strong voice. But it really sucked. And so that's where this jumped off of. But the idea of the series is that it is hopeful. And my hope in reading this is that people who have either been through these sorts of tragedies can, I don't want to say find solace in it, because I'm not a therapist, and I'm not, the kind of person to do this stuff, but find something comforting in this and find some hope. And people who have been in a spot where they feel really bad about where they are can find something colorful and hopeful and something in this series that speaks to them. And it's hard for me to really talk about that because I hate to sound like a savior complex, because that's not my intention at all. I'm just trying to make a story that needs something to people, but people have told me that those are their feelings about the series.
I will say this as someone who, who also draws comics, we entertain. That's
Yes.
our thing. I tend to lean more towards humor hugely. And I've always said if I make you laugh, I done my job. I don't care if you laugh at me or with me, as long as you laugh, I did my job.
I agree.
And I like to think, one of the reasons that, for me, even though, yeah, I'm a cartoonist or whatever, I consider myself a storyteller, whether I'm telling a joke or an actual story. And we connect with stories. We're a storytelling society. I mean, it's how we communicate. And when you write something or illustrate something that you can have people connect with, whether it's because of some emotional connection, whether it's to the story, the character, whatever, they care, and they'll constantly follow. And that, I think, is an amazing ability to have. So even though you're not trying to create something for the savior complex or whatever term you used or whatever, you are creating something that people are enjoying, that people want, that connect with, and that want to continue connecting with. And I think that's a fantastic thing. I'll be honest, I remember when I saw you at Mocha Fest, right? I was walking around the show looking for, actually talking to artists to see if they wanted to come on here. And I was talking to our mutual friend, Ramon Gill, who needs to come back on.
Yes.
And he was like, I'm like, more people here than me. Who should I go talk to? And you were one of the first people he mentioned. And
he's such a good guy.
Oh, yeah, he's awesome. I love the dude. And when I came to your booth, I should say table, I don't know if it was really a booth, but when I came to your table, you were packed. I waited probably a good 10 minutes just to say, hey, I don't know if you know who I am, because I know we were connected over social media and stuff and met a few times. But I was like, I waited literally like 10 minutes just to give you my card, and I didn't even have time.
Waiting.
And I wanted to look more through your work, because even though I have seen your work, and unfortunately it's not something I can follow regularly, but I'd like to. No, it's one of those things where it's like I sit down and I'm like, okay, it's time, and here I read whatever, and then it's okay, I gotta move on. Oh, I haven't read this in a month, I got or something or whatever.
I got you. I understand.
So I was like, oh, this is great, maybe I'll check out your books. There was no room for me to check out your books. That's how great of like stories you're creating, because your fans are there. They're buying your books.
You're so kind. Thank you.
You're welcome. But it's true. I mean, I'm not making it up. You were there.
But still, it's just, I don't know. Sometimes when you're doing this stuff, you're like, none of this is real. I've convinced myself that things are working. And then, you talk to people and they're like, they say nice things to you and you're like, So it just, that means a lot to me. Thank you. Thank you for waiting in the line. Mocha Fest was particularly nuts. So thank you.
Yeah. And I haven't been, God, I don't know how many years, definitely pre-pandemic.
Same.
That was the last time I was there. But yeah, no, it looked nuts. I met a lot of great artists. I'm going to have some really interesting shows coming up.
There's Mocha, just as an aside, like if you had I mean, the people on either side of me were not from New York, but like if you want to get like all of the like weird, interesting New York cartoonists together, Mocha Fest is a good place to go look.
Yeah, there's There were a couple that were definitely European artists, and I took
Yes.
their cards, and I was like, "Excuse me, I don't know their work, but I've been researching them, and I'm a fan of European art." Um, I grew up, even though I read, all the comics I showed you
Mhm.
behind me, like you mentioned, Garfield and all those things. Um, I grew up reading books, like the Smurfs and Asterix and Lucky Luke and all
That's
those like
awesome.
Belgium stuff. So that's
Mhm.
actually quite a big influence in my style. Hold on, is
Oh,
this here?
actually, on the subject of
Yeah.
European, because I was thinking about this the other day, a comic that I loved when I was in middle school and high school is Witch, which is a Italian Disney comic, but it
Yes.
didn't get an official English release until, I don't know, 7 years ago.
Really?
Um, yeah, it was one of those things. It had a novelization in English because they didn't think that girls would want to read comics, I guess. I don't know. And it would start with a couple comic pages, and I assume that's where I saw it the first time. I ended up reading it on scan sites. I believe the first one was like the English, but for the Singapore market. But then after that, it was fan translations on a Philippines website that was run by some college student who was like, no, I'm going to get this into the English speaking world. Gosh darn it. And sometimes it would go offline, and sometimes it would make my virus thing freak out, and I would be scared to keep reading. But that style, this like European beautiful watercolory style mixed with anime, was really what I wanted to do at that point in my life.
I'm gonna have to
It's
look it
so
up.
beautiful. It's a really fun
Yeah.
comic. Oh, it had a cartoon that they brought over here too. The cartoon's pretty good, but
Really?
again, always a comics person first.
I will check that out. You got a comment here. Seeing you at Mocha Fest is one of the highlights of for me that day.
Oh, thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for stopping by. You were
Yeah.
so kind.
Yeah. No, it was a fun show. Really fun show. Um, so let's talk about a little bit more about the comic. Can you tell me about for my audience who doesn't know your work, tell me about
Mhm.
some of the characters that we're seeing on the screen here. Anything you want to specifically point out and talk about, or
Sure. Well, so the concept of Anarchy Dreamers is it's set in a world where, kind of I talked about this before, it's set in a world where sometimes if you die suddenly, but it is not your time, you come back like immediately. But you come back a little bit different. Your soul was like enhanced. And so these people are called dreamwalkers. The positive is they're a little bit stronger. They have interesting abilities, and it really varies person to person. The bad side of it is that now that you've crossed the veil between worlds and come back, you can see all the stuff that's floating around in between the veil, which are the nightmares. And nightmares are created by basically bad vibes, bad emotions, and most of the time they're pretty harmless, and then sometimes they get like spicier, and then sometimes they absolutely destroy things. There's a whole chart on how that works. And basically, Anarchy Dreamers is set in a high school where something mysterious happened and a bunch of people dropped dead and came back immediately. And no one really knows what happened. Clearly, the school is keeping something quiet. The Dreamwalker Guard, which is the like government organization that handles these things, is keeping it quiet. And you've got a group of kids who lost a lot of their memory in the lead up to whatever happened. They call it the incident. And they want to figure out what happened, and they are approached by the god of dreams, who is a mischievous shapeshifter who takes the form of a Canadian goose most of the time because it's
okay.
funny. um, and basically it gives them magical destiny. It's like if you fight your classmates' nightmares, if you fix the problems that have come out of this other world, I will lead you towards the answer, like why you died, what happened to you.
Yeah.
And at this point in the story, we've gotten a little bit of information. It's starting to come together. They've had a big old nightmare boss fight kind of thing, and some people who seemed like they were going to be our enemies were actually just really dealing with some stuff and needed to honestly talk it out and feel a little better, so they stopped destroying things as magical nightmare monsters.
That's that. Listen, first of all, that's a fantastic story. Second of all, I wanted to ask you, how many pages do you have up online?
There's over 300 right now. The
Yeah.
story, I'm going to be honest, the story has been on hiatus since the pandemic.
Yeah.
I am a New Yorker. I was an
Yeah.
essential worker for state government, and I had a doozy of a pandemic. So I did other stuff that was a little in the Anarchy Dreamers universe, but a little fluffier. I have a romance side
Yeah.
comic. I'm getting back into Anarchy Dreamers this year. I have been
Nice.
working on it. I don't expect to have anything big to show anyone until maybe the beginning of next year, but I'll throw stuff up on Patreon as I finish it.
Nice. And we got a comment here. When I found Anarchy Dreamers comic, I binged it in one night. Now,
Thank you, Ray.
you know, when I say I haven't read your stuff, I didn't realize it was that long that I haven't read your stuff. Like I would read things and then I would go back. So I don't think I've ever even finished what you have up online, which means I need a day off from work. I need a
Look at it.
Oh no, no. It's one of those things. Like for me, when I feel like I have free time, I get angry if I'm not drawing because I'm like I got to get my work done. You know.
I understand.
But no, like I read a lot of online comics these days. Like I don't even know if I like the term web comics, but I'll call it a web comic. I read a lot of web comics. I read a lot of digital comics these days. You know, I'm old school. I do love paper in my hand. I do love the physical book, but you know, I don't have a lot of room to store stuff. So
same. Same page. It's a problem. I've taken to donating to comic book shops and just being like, I don't ask for anything, but they usually give me like a discount so that I can acquire more comics that will later be donated if they're lightly used. But
interesting.
I've developed an interesting relationship with a couple of like very indie centric comic book shops, and they've been very good to me over the years.
That's nice. And if there's any you want to promote, feel free to. I'm happy.
I'll tell you, I was up in Hudson, New York, with my mom about a year ago, and I stumbled upon this literally brand new, just opened its doors comic book shop called Pure Folly Comics. They are awesome. They are a traditional comic book shop, but they also sell all of the weird indie stuff. Like they've got a local zine section, and it's just there was absolutely nothing like it in the area before that, so that's cool. I love I hate to say this because I don't know if they're still around, but Carmine Street Comics was the first place to give me a break.
No, sorry, Carmine's no longer. I know. I'm good friends with John.
They're the best. They gave me my first book signing. They put me in the window. They were so cool. They made sure that my book was stocked all the time for New York City people, and I was gonna say I was pretty sure they're not with us anymore.
Yeah. Did you see John at Mocha Fest?
Briefly. Yeah. I didn't get to leave my table the entire time. I didn't have any helpers with me that day. So a lot of people kind of swung by and yelled, "Emily!" and waved, and I went, "Ah!" And then that was it. I ran into, no, literally, I was running to go to the bathroom right before the show opened, and I saw Ramon talking to someone, like one of his students, and I ran over and I was like, "Hey, I know you're busy. I'm not going to see you otherwise. Great to see you. Glad you're doing well." And he was like, "You too." And then I zoomed back to the table.
Oh, yeah. No, because I remember John came up to me. I was talking to some artists, and he kind of was just standing. I turned around. I'm like, "Oh, hello," you know. But it was good to see him. We actually, a group of us went out to eat afterwards. He joined.
That's awesome.
Joined us. That was nice. Yeah, it was a nice show. I'm you know, maybe next year for me. I don't know. We'll see.
Do it. Listen, it doesn't. I love Mocha Fest. I take care of everybody. You know, I love all of the Reed Pop shows. I love Comic Con. I love C2E2. You don't get that human experience, that human, you know, just like taking care of you like you do with like the small press shows.
No, I agree. I actually like the smaller shows. I don't want to go into a big. I've talked about it on here, but I don't want to go into a big thing. Now, I'll just give my quick opinion. If you want to comment, you're welcome to. I miss comic book conventions. That's why I like the smaller shows. I have nothing against cosplayers, specifically the ones who build their own stuff. I respect that. I used to build, I used to do puppetry, and I used to build puppets. I used to build props. I used to build things. I love that skill set, and I really appreciate what they do. But cosplayers seem to think they own the show a lot of times, and tend to be the ones who don't spend a lot of money on the books. And I also have an issue with a lot of celebrities being at shows. Now, I have friends who are celebrities. A good friend of mine is a celebrity who goes to shows, and I will never deny anyone from making money and doing anything. And he's probably one of the greatest people you'll ever have at a show. All right. By the way, if you guys want to know, I'm not usually a name dropper, but since he's been on the show and we've talked, it's Marty Grabstein. He was the voice of Courage the Cowardly Dog. Dude is an awesome fellow. Love the guy to death. And I'll never deny him any con or anything of making money. But my problem is they're not comic book convention shows anymore. They're pop culture shows. And if you want it to be a pop culture show, that's awesome, and call it that. But if it's a comic book convention, to me, celebrities should be people like Steve Rude, you know, or you know, just large names in the industry that sell work. That's how I see comics. When I started in conventions, even going as I don't want to say a kid, I started going in my teens, but when I went in my teens, that was the type of shows I would see. And those are the type of shows I was introduced to. And those are the shows that I like. Now, maybe I'm just an old, angry old man now, but it's what I want to see in my shows. I don't want to be the headliner is whatever celebrity, you know, who's voice acting something or was a character in Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't care. I don't hate them, and I don't knock them for you know, for doing them. It's part of the business. I'm just not a fan of I'm not a fan of shows where it's like going to be big celebrities or big cosplay. I like where it's more comic book oriented. That's just my personal opinion.
That's Mocha for you, and that's Small Press Expo. You got to get down to Bethesda. It's such a good show.
I want to just put up a couple of comments. So we got this right here. I read the entirety of that. Whatever I can't say stops the world.
Koichi Takahashi stops the world.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not good with the Japanese.
That's okay.
And and Annabelle, another great artist. You guys, Annabelle, tell me if it's still available. But he's doing the Dark Form comic, which is up on Kickstarter, I believe. If it's down, if it's finished, let us know. But I will have the pinup I owe him tomorrow, by the end of the day tomorrow.
So, I am gonna check that out.
Dark Form, it's actually a really cool story, and that's actually one of the things I want to talk to you, because you are very successful with Kickstarter. but yeah, no, he's got a great comic. I don't want to give the story away. Yeah, it still has a week on Kickstarter, so it's called Dark Form. Okay. And you can watch. I've had him and the team on probably at least 2 times at least now on the show, so you guys could check that out. It's a really, really fun looking comic. It's, for me, it was the design of the character that drew me in. I'm a big G.I. Joe fan from my childhood, and he's kind of got a Snake Eyes vibe, and I'm just like,
oh, cool.
That's so, but like Snake Eyes with powers, you know, that's kind of how it is for me.
That's awesome.
Now let's take this. I don't know if it's this screen. Let me see if I go down here or up. I mean, now if I go back, I'm hearing an echo in my headphones here. Now, this is another big one for you here. Chase Me. This is what you're currently working on.
Brand new. So Chase Me is super fun. I think it's really fun. Chase Me was just on Kickstarter in February into March. It was successful. It is a clearly manga inspired looking comic. It is black and white. Most of my work is in color, but I did this because it fit the contents of the story, and also because we're probably entering a recession and it's cheaper to print black and white.
You know what? I want to. Can I just stop you?
Yeah, go for it.
This has been a discussion between me and other people, not just on the show, but in just conversation with friends. You know, we all do, you know, comics. A lot of my friends would do like our own superhero stuff and whatever, and everyone wants to print these books, whether they're on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, or just they're print on demand and they sell whatever. They want color because that's the comics they want. a lot of
Yes.
people also have issues with manga. Some people think it's the
Oh
worst
yeah.
thing ever. Other people think it's the greatest thing. And then there's people who are like, I can take it or leave it, or, you know, it's good for what it is, or, you know, whatever.
Hmm.
But manga outsells American comics. It's been everywhere. Everyone knows it.
Hmm.
It's as simple as that. And all manga is black and white.
Yep.
So
Interesting, huh?
I find that very interesting. I do. Also, I have a form of color blindness called shade blindness. So I see colors, but when they start blending, I have trouble telling them apart. So like it's not like I'm black and white or whatever. I see every color, but like I don't see green grass. For some reason, there's a reddish tint and it looks orange to me. You know?
Interesting.
Yeah, it looks like I'm on acid the whole time. I'm every day, but it's
Jeez
but
Louise.
no, but I tend but I tend to I for that reason, like when you look at my Wiz stuff, all the colors are bright,
Hmm.
or anything I do are bright because that's what I see well. But I
Fair enough.
really like lean towards these black and white grayscale comics. I find them fascinating. First of all, I see them better. You know, it's more
Good point.
entertaining for me, and the color doesn't you know, doesn't take away because there's no color. I'm not focused on, well, is this supposed to be blue
We're
or
all seeing the
yeah,
same thing.
exactly. I love it. I love it. So anyway, continue.
No, no, you're right. It's this comic. It's an Anarchy Dreamers side comic. You do not have to read Anarchy Dreamers to understand this. It's fun. But basically, the concept of this comic is a bunch of kids play tag in a cemetery, and the kids have superpowers, and the cemetery is haunted, and somebody gets possessed, and it's fun. I think most people have had experiences playing tag and also not wanting to play tag,
Yeah.
so that's like the full breadth of human experience. And yeah, our main character here, Tig, who is in all of my comics, is forced to be it because he keeps complaining. And everyone's like, well, that's what you get for complaining. And he's going to go on a little adventure playing tag in the cemetery that they're also absolutely not supposed to be in. One of the rules is if you see the cops, we bail. But yeah, it's a fun time. The comic was on Kickstarter for a month. It was successful. I just got the full like order the other day, and I sent you a photo of me posing with the book mountain.
I was
because
actually going to open it up and
Go
show
for
it. You just got to give me a second. I didn't get that one ready. You can continue
That's
talking while I
okay.
look for it.
So that was really fun. This was kind of an unusual comic and campaign for me because all of my previous work that I have sold has been available for free on the internet beforehand. And with this comic, I did it. The first like 14 pages are up for free, but otherwise it was either on Patreon or you just had to get the book and trust me that it's good. And I know that's how most all the publishing world works, but it's not how I've worked. I've always been one of those like, hey, it's online for free. Read it, and if you like it, you can buy it, or don't buy it. Just read it for free. And it was just it was a new experience for me, and it was honestly a fun time. And I've got my copy of Chase Me right
That is
here.
great. Hold on, let me give you the screen for a second. Just okay. The screen is yours. You can hold up the book.
Here it is. Chase Me, episode 1. It's like 40 something pages with a little bit of bonus content. And the back cover I really like. I've started putting like the ratings and the genre on the back of the comic, which is not something I've ever done before.
Okay.
And like some of the other comics that I do are here. They're all related, but I try to make everything so that like you can just read it and maybe you'll want to read the rest of the universe, but you don't have to read one to get the other one. I'm not much of a Marvel girly. I love comics in general, but like I hate that thing where it's like I have to watch 17 movies to understand what's happening in the funny raccoon is talking movie. So
you're gonna put me on another rant, but
that's okay. You don't have to go through that. I don't have enough to add
okay.
to it. So.
I'm just one of those people. I get angry at a lot of stuff. But I love it. Don't get me wrong. It's angry because I love. It's from love. It's not angry because I'm just like an angry person. I love this stuff. That was my It's what I grew up on.
I got you.
Although I'm much more a DC guy.
Fair
That
enough.
is nice.
Fair enough.
What is it? Oh, that's a nice piece.
It's from the comic, but it's a little like card that I'm putting in with all the Kickstarter orders, just thanking people for getting the book and just saying like, if you like it, shout me out online. That's how like small press people like me get new readers, is like word of mouth.
Yeah.
I actually learned this from like all of the really cool like ladies, it was mostly ladies who were in my row at Mocha Fest, who have like super successful online businesses, and they like send out little cards that thank people, and they have like a little thing about where to share their work. And I'm like, that's so cute. It's like a business card but gigantic, and it's also like
Yeah.
a little free art print. Like I think that's amazing. I love learning from other artists. It's the
No,
best.
that's how you do it. I mean,
Hmm.
starting the way I started was just talking to people at shows. There, I don't know if you know. Uh, I was gonna say a different person's name for a second. If you know who JD Calderon is, Daphne Lage, do you know those
Names
two?
are familiar, but I don't know the work
Um,
offhand.
she does well. They work together. They're a married couple,
Oh,
but
awesome.
they did Tall Tales. JD's book is Oswald, the Oswald Chronicles. She has Ego Raven. It's like a
I've heard of that.
unicorn thing. It's
Yep.
they just long story short, they're just a couple of years old. I mean, at the most maybe 5. I don't even know. Could
Hmm.
be less. But I remember going to a show. Now I told you before I went on the we went on the air. I grew up in Mayapack, New York, which is about an hour, maybe an hour and a half outside of New York City, north of New York
Hmm.
City or so. And I went to, we had a local mall. It was in a couple, a town over, called Jefferson Valley. And I go to the Jefferson Valley Mall, and there was a Comic-Con in there when I was 16. And they were selling their Tall Tales book and another book. And
That's
this was the
awesome.
first time I met creators who were like close to my age. And I said, well, if they can do it, I can do, like, I'm like, they were really
Hmm.
inspiring to me. And now, they're friends of mine and stuff, which I just think is great. And I'm always happy to
That is
promote their
awesome.
books and stuff. Um, but, but where was I going with this? But yeah, no, I'm saying like this idea of feeling, um, damn it. Sorry. I zone out sometimes when I look at other things. I was getting your
You're
picture ready to show.
fine. Don't worry.
No, but I was just saying, like, oh, I learned so much from them. That's
Hmm.
where we're going with. I just to talking to them, and then I started going to other shows and talking to, people who'd be considered pro creators and whatever. And it was just fantastic. It was that I wouldn't do what I do, or do the many shows. Like, the one thing I learned, well, two things I learned after doing my show, first couple of shows:
Hmm.
more color, and I was working a lot of black and white. They're like, more color because it draws people in, and height
Hmm.
at your table. Those are the two things I learned. And I was like, that is it. You got those two things. And that's when I started doing it, and that's when I started selling more. Now let's share this picture of you with all these boxes. Um, do you want all three shared, or
You go for it.
okay?
It's on Instagram already.
Okay, because I do find them a little funny.
They're supposed to be. I was like,
Okay,
this is ridiculous. This is
I
the box
love,
mountain.
like, yeah, the mountain of boxes. This one here. This is great, and this is where I'm like, oh, she's a Bleach fan.
I am.
And then I saw this, and I'm like, oh, I have this book too, the Silver Way.
Yes, that's
That,
that's a really good book. I have
yeah.
one critique of it, but it's a great book.
Well, let's not critique it on here. I'm trying to get
No, we're
Steven on
good.
the show.
It's
This
a
one,
wonderful book, and I learned a lot
yeah.
from it, I
No,
will
no,
say.
it is fantastic. I have a lot. One of the things I do, or I used to do, was collect a lot of how-to books and a lot of instructional books. Not
Hmm.
because I felt I needed more instruction. I just collect. It's
Yeah,
something
fair.
I liked. I used to have. I don't have it anymore because the book just got old and disgusting. But
Oh.
I used to have the original um, textbook from the School of Visual Arts, before I think it was actually called the School of Visual Arts. And one of my
That.
instructors helped write the book. Now, I didn't go to SVA, but I later on studied under a man named Tom Gill, who used to draw the Lone Ranger book in the
Hmm.
50s and 60s. So I studied under Tom. and Tom helped write the book according to what he told me. And when he told me that, it was one of my first collectible books I bought, and then it just got old and was falling apart. But I love this where you're like holding them up. This cracks me up here. But this one's my favorite though. Is you pray. It's like, are you praying that thank God don't fall on me, or sell? Just I don't want to.
Most of those are spoken for.
That's
already.
fantastic.
This is just I was raised Catholic, so it's, and that is, I would, that's a whole other can of worms there.
It's okay.
But
hey, I was raised the same.
Hey, there's a little bit of a like compulsion to not necessarily that you're praying, but like a compulsion of I have to just do this for a second, and I do it mostly jokingly, but also I'm just like I'm praying. Am I praying to the box tower? Am I praying it won't fall over?
Yeah.
I just think it's really funny. There's a whole Catholic extravaganza going on in my family in 2 weeks, where on the same day there's a baptism and a first communion. So it's really been on my mind lately.
Oh wow! Yeah, I had 2 communions in last week and the week before. Unfortunately, I had to miss Free Comic Book Day, like setting up. But let's see, we got a comment here. Learning from others, being inspired by others is a great thing. I didn't transition to working in comics till I met Emily. Nice.
Oh, Adam, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And Adam is like super successful, so on Webtoon. So like that's awesome.
Adam? Then you got to promote your
comic.
Put it in the comments, and maybe we'll even bring you on and have you star on the show one day, and we'll talk to you.
He's local too, so
oh, cool.
Got our people in here.
I'm happy. Listen, I love local.
We got a lot of talent around here.
No, we really do. It's amazing how many. When it's funny when I look at like people who are in the National Cartoonist Society and people that we grew up reading. I found out later in life that a lot of the people that I was a fan of lived either in Connecticut or in New York. And then I found out a lot of the other ones were either in Jersey or like Indiana. But for a while, I thought I had to live out Midwest to like when I was a kid, I'm like, I have to move to the Midwest to do comics because that's where
Garfield is.
Yeah, well, Garfield's there, but there's others out there too. There's a lot of others if you look at it. Let's see. Adam says, "Don't." What's that say? Don't throw me on blast. This is you're allowed to listen. If you've never watched my show, I recommend people in the audience posting their promotional work in the comment. And I want people to be fans of everybody. And you are in Florida now.
Oh, dang! I didn't know you moved that far. I'm sorry.
You know what? You're in the East Coast. You're still local.
Yeah, it's fine.
You're still in the same time zone, man.
This bummed you probably won't be at Anime NYC. I always look forward to seeing you there. Another time.
Oh.
Anime NYC is my favorite. I love them. That's my overarching absolute favorite show that I do. All the shows I do have things that I love, but I really grew with Anime NYC, and it means a lot to me. And if you're not an anime person, if you're not a cosplay person, it's not going to be your thing. But I have a weird little niche there, and they absolutely gave me a shot when they didn't have to, because I was very young and hadn't done my own big table by myself before, and they were really chill about it.
Oh, that is...
My first show ever was an anime con. It was Anime Boston, and I was 15, and back then all you had to do was be online at 5 p.m. and pay them before other people did to get a table. And I sold like 2 things the whole weekend, and the next year they raised the age of tables to like 18, and I think I was part of the reason. It was an adventure, but I learned a lot by selling very little and just having like 8 kids behind my table. I had a great time. I didn't think it was a big deal that I didn't sell very much, but whatevs.
Hey, listen, everyone has their own what's the word I want to use? Their own I guess target of what is successful. Their own idea of what is successful, and but yeah, it's let's see, what does he say? But yeah, I did mention animation and voiceover stuff for the dude. My background's in animation. We're happy to talk. You know,
Gotta talk to Adam. He's
yeah,
awesome. He's got
yeah,
like, actually, if you ever wanted to do, and not to put you on blast, Adam, but if you ever wanted to do some kind of a like show where you talk to someone about like advertising for web comics, Adam did some
mm,
pretty interesting stuff with like voicing like motion comics, like getting voice actors and like animating some stuff.
that
And
is awesome.
cool, right? It actually inspired me. My plan, so with Chase Me right now, it's just a book and it's on Patreon. It is going on Webtoon because I've never really done Webtoon before. It's literally queued up. I want the books to go out before I put the first
Yeah,
three
I understand.
episodes of 10 pages up
Yeah,
each. But I learned a lot from Adam with this idea of like kind of getting stuff animated. And like, I am not an animator at all. My background is totally traditional art, like paintings and stuff. But you can go on places and like commission people to do stuff for,
yeah.
pretty affordable price. So I'm going to do like motion comics with some of my comic panels to promote it and just see where that gets me. If nothing else, it's a cool thing to throw on Instagram.
Let me tell you, motion comics I thought were going to be the way of the future. No, I'm serious.
No, I.
You're bringing up so many topics. You know, when I got into the industry, like I said, it was '97, but I've been working
Mhm.
since 1994 professionally since I was 18. My
Nice.
first program I learned was a program called Director, which nobody knows these days unless you're like close to my age. But it was basically they used to program sometimes like games in there, like Myst was, if you remember that game,
I've heard of Mist.
was
Yes.
programmed in there and stuff. And I was working on educational children's software stuff that came out on CDs and things. Um, but I was doing the third program I learned was for Adobe was After Effects. So by the time it was in 1995, I was still in college. I was learning Adobe After Effects. Actually,
Mhm.
I taught that program to myself in one night because I had to use it at work one day. And they're like, "Do you know After Effects?" I said no. And this was the time you could actually give someone the program.
Um, I miss those
And
days.
yeah, it was like here to fit on a zip disk and stuff. And I don't know.
My Photoshop CS2 ended up on like 15 different
Yeah,
computers. I spread the love with that
yeah.
one.
Yeah, up until CS3, right? That's when I
Yeah.
think it changed. No,
Five.
CS5 I think was the last
Yeah.
time you could do it. But yeah, no, so anyway, I was learning about all these programs and what I was doing in these programs was animating and just making like motion graphics,
Hmm.
and stuff. And I'm like, why can't I bring this to comics? And by the time it hit the late '90s, early 2000s, people started experimenting with it and they were talking. I'm like,
Hmm.
and from the '90s, I've been the one saying, no, you got to focus on digital, even though comics are great traditionally. Digital's the way to go. And I'm like, motion graphics you'll see are going to be huge. And then it kind of, but I thought that's how it's now. Whoops! Now I see how digital comics are going. I'm like, I saw the web comic was the trend, and now it's like digital downloads. There's like all these things going
Mm.
on. But I was always like promoting that, and people like, nope, you got to have the book in your hand. That was it. It was a thing. But no, if you do this stuff, man, I would totally love to see it. Totally, it's great. What is he saying?
I've been.
What did he say? Oh, do it. Yes, that'd be amazing. I'm still learning how to do them with After Effects. That's exciting. After Effects is one of my favorite softwares. I
It's really
actually do.
cool.
What?
It's really cool. I've only
Yeah,
messed with it, but it is pretty cool.
yeah, it's a fun pro. I do prefer, even though nobody really uses it professionally anymore outside of like some gaming things, is Adobe Animate, which used to be called Flash.
Yep.
Um, I love that. It's just like I've been using it since the late '90s when it was under Macromedia. So
I
it's
have friends who to this day they've got like a jank copy of like a Macromedia Flash that they get going on their computer, and that's how they do their stuff. Like
wow.
it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle, and I
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. But anyway, let's
Yeah.
let's just move on because we are
Mhm.
not that we're sidetracked. I don't mind tangents. It's all fun. Um, I want to talk to you about your Kickstarter. You've been so successful with Kickstarter. I think I opened your Kickstarter. What is your secret?
I keep showing up. I'm gonna be honest with you. My first Kickstarter was October 2015, and it was for like $700, and we got like 1,200, and that blew my mind. I couldn't believe it, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And I've had my ups and downs with it. I have 12 successful Kickstarters, but I launched 13, and I had one where everything in the world was set up to make me fail, and I called it. I just canceled it, and I relaunched it on a different day with a slightly lower goal, and then that was a super successful campaign. Yeah. So I guess my thing with Kickstarter is you get in, you get out what you put in. You have to be sociable, like you have to be good at talking to people because you are now a PR department and also a customer service department. And I mean, of course, you have to make something people want to read. So for me, having a webcomic that people could read for free and then decide to support was helpful. But like, I don't know. I just kept showing up. I know a lot of people who have gone into crowdfunding, and it's not for them. It's you put too much of yourself out into the world for everyone to judge and be able to contact you in the middle of the night because they want to know where their comic is. And I've had some absolutely wild customer service issues through Kickstarter, not Kickstarter itself, just mostly the mail. I had some almost get burned in California wildfires, and all kinds of stuff happened, but otherwise it's been a great time. And I couldn't do it without my wonderful readers. Like I have an amazing readership. From the beginning, I have had some of the nicest people reading my work and supporting it financially. I mean, only about 10% of people who read your work online realistically are going to support it financially. And I make a comic that does lean like a young adult audience. Not necessarily that all the people reading it are young adults, but you're going to have a lot of younger people. And just I've had great emotional support and financial support from everybody. And I don't really know. I just the one time I tried to go crazy and make like a super not expensive, but expensive looking and exciting Kickstarter video, just fell flat in its face. I basically just talk at the camera for 1 minute and 10 seconds and say, hey, here's my comic. Here's the deal. This is what you'll get. I hope you like it. Thank you for reading. And I just tried my best. That was a big ramble, but that's what it is. And I've made some really great comic industry connections and friends through Kickstarter. I would not have an actual career if it wasn't for Kickstarter. All of my financial success and jobs outside of my own comics have come from doing work either for other people's Kickstarter or for people I've met through Kickstarter. And then some of them introduced me to people at shows and stuff like that. But
that's fantastic. Congratulations on that.
Thanks. That was a big rant. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. This is fantastic. I love your style so much.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Chase Me is a fun comic. Like it's very silly. It's just over the top, anime inspired.
Yeah.
Thing. I'm not really. It's funny because like I don't want to spoil the book because like everyone who supported this book through Kickstarter has at this point received a digital copy, and a lot of people have read it, and a lot of them are, as far as I can tell from the comments, are here in the video tonight, or we're here. But there are a lot of people who haven't read it yet, so I don't want to spoil it. But it is just kind of silly and spooky, and it's a fun time.
Yeah, I like this.
Thank you. I had a little preview copy at Anime NYC. I've never done that before. It was like 8 pages, and I think it cost like $5, and it was super popular. And a lot of people came back and bought the full book either through the Kickstarter, or I had a small pile of proof copies. I had a small pile of proof copies I sold at Mocha Fest, and some people who were not aware of the Kickstarter but had been at Anime NYC came through and got them. So that was pretty cool.
Let me ask you. You mentioned Anime NYC before. When was it this year?
It's November. It's always the weekend before Thanksgiving.
Okay. All right.
It's for me, my busy time of year with shows is the fall, because in a good year, and knock on wood, it's gonna happen this year. I have Small Press Expo, I have New York Comic Con, and I have Anime NYC, and then usually there is some other event or smaller show that falls in there. My I went to FIT, Fashion Institute of Technology,
Okay.
and they have they used to have a con called BivCon. I used to either sell at that or work at it. Ramon was like the head of it, so that was kind of my connection there.
Yeah.
And then I usually end up doing some kind of a holiday market during Christmas. And at my day job, Halloween is a big thing, and I really like Halloween. So busy time of year. But what I'm getting at is it fits in nicely right before Thanksgiving. So I get to have a really fun time at the Anime Con. And then when I see my family on Thursday, I have lots of fun stuff to talk about, and I can show them photos.
That's cool. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I was asked by a friend if we wanted to meet up. I couldn't for whatever reason, and he didn't end up going. I won't mention his name on the air. No, just because he's a little larger of a name, and I don't want to
Fair
do
enough.
that right now. But yeah, no, he didn't end up going this year. But we've been talking about maybe either meeting up there or even just splitting a table, because even though like I said, even though I used to outlaw manga and anime in my classroom in style, doesn't mean I don't draw it. And I got 2 stories I'm doing this year in kind of a manga style. So
Try for it. Hey, the Artist Alley's open right now. The applications are open. It closes May 19th. So
we'll have to do a quick talk then.
yeah. The other thing I wanted to say, just to throw this in for Anime NYC, if you are just like a Japanese culture fan, this is the most cultural anime con I've ever been to, and not just like traditional stuff. There's the best food hall I have ever seen. There's just a Japanese food hall, and it's attached to the Artist Alley, and I ate so good the whole weekend, which is not something I can say about most conventions. And it's in the Javits Center, so you're like, the food's gonna be disgusting, and you're like, I just had a salmon teriyaki bento box. I feel like a real person. And it was $17, which isn't a lot for that in New York City.
It's true.
But it's true. But then also the waifu cars. There's this like community in North Jersey and a community in Texas, and they bring in their waifu cars and they park them in the Javits Center. And at the end of the show, when we're cleaning up, they slowly drive them out. And that's the start of my holiday season, is watching the waifu cars leave.
That's funny.
I find people's hobbies like that so fascinating, because there's so much artistry and so much devotion and money behind it. I think that's super cool, honestly.
Yeah. And let me just say hi to Dylan, who's watching. Hi, Dylan. So yeah, that sounds interesting. I've never been, or maybe I've been to the very first one they did. I don't remember.
The first one was a little rough, but I loved it.
Because they used to, or they did the first one they did, wasn't that combined with New York Comic Con?
That was New York Anime Fest, which New York Comic Con ate. It ate
so
it.
I don't remember that one. Yeah, no. So I know I've been to an anime con in the Javits Center. I just don't remember which one now.
Well, it's like it used to be at the same time as New York Comic Con, but it was upstairs. But then they also didn't have good signage. And then the last year they put it at like Pier 51. It was like a 20-block walk from above Times Square down 10th Avenue. And I bought a ticket for it. And I had actually hurt my foot, and I wasn't going to pay for a cab. So I just didn't go. They just ate my $15. I was like, it was a separately ticketed event, which was weird. And then it was gone forever. And then Risen from the Ashes, totally different company, Anime NYC. Sorry.
Hey, listen, that's fine. I like to know about all these shows, because even though, I have my little anger towards cons, I love them. I really, truly love conventions. I will say I prefer to be sitting behind the table than walking them, but I do love the experience, the camaraderie between the artists and writers and creators and everything. It's just, and even the fans. It's just like, it's weird, but like our fandom whether it's comics, manga, whatever, there's some of the
Mm-hmm.
nicest people in there. I mean,
Absolutely.
once in a while you get the rare jerk, but I mean, my God, I have very few friends that I've continued with since like college, my
Mm-hmm.
college days. The majority of the people I talk with on a regular basis are everybody I met at shows. They're all professional coworkers, and I wouldn't do a lot of the stuff I do, I guess, if it wasn't for knowing them. They help push it. When Annibal, if you're still watching, I mean, we set up a schedule which we fell off of pushing each other to create. Like we would check in weekly and make sure that, hey, listen, it's what part of the comic are you at? How many pages is your book? It's 8 pages. Okay, is your story? Did you get up to page 7 yet? Page 8. Like,
That's
so we were
awesome.
doing that, and it's we push each other. It's just a fantastic industry, and I love that. The fans. I love all that stuff. So yeah, I'd like to get to more shows as soon as I can. But anyway, getting back to your stuff. This is because this is why we're here. I know I sidetrack, but this is why we are here. It's wow. I'm just looking at the Chase Me cover right now. I'm really enjoying the look of that.
Thank
Um,
you.
I like the texture that you have in the background there. Because I
Thank
do listen.
you.
The one thing I haven't really done, which I do on every show, and I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to pull up the cover right now, is I geek out about art. I'm an artist. I geek out about art. This is just I love the simplicity behind it. It's easy
Thank
composition.
you.
I even love this little overlap you have of the A on there, so it doesn't even look like it's separate there, that he's interacting with it. It's just nice. It is
Thank you.
so nice. He did just, and it's what I like. It's just the A. It's no other letter. It's just the simplicity. Everything behind this is simple but works so
That
well.
I've always like wished I was someone who was really good at beautiful, detailed art. And I can do it, but my most successful pieces have some simplicity to them. And I go back to Bleach. I think that's what it is. The covers of Bleach are notoriously sparse, and I've always enjoyed that. And it's real hit or miss. Some people like it, some people don't. But I was absolutely going with that inspiration with this cover. And I love fashion. Like that's definitely an overarching thing in my
Well, we
work.
haven't
So
actually gotten to that yet. There was a piece that was going to be the final thing I was going to ask you about, but we'll get
well,
into that.
we'll get into. I'm just saying, I like to show off how the characters look. Like that's yeah, I put all this effort into them. I want them to look nice. So I like doing covers where it's just a character looking cool and there's something about it that draws you in. And in this case, the colors are very like they're meant to draw you in. I'm a big fan of neon yellow and black. Like I think it's great. And yeah, I really love this cover. I remember when I was working on it, I was like, ooh, something good is happening here. Like I had been struggling to come up with a cover for this for a while, and I was like, all right, it's coming together. We got this. It's all good.
You know what? There was one question I wanted to ask you that I forgot to
Yeah.
ask in the beginning when we were talking about how you got into the stuff. How did you learn to draw this style? Is this just something being attracted? Did you learn from books? Just watched and I'm just curious because when people draw anime, I hear so many different answers of how they learned that I'm just curious on yours.
So initially, right after I got into manga, I got a hold of a couple of those like old school. They were old for when I was buying them, but those original how to draw manga like
Some of the
books.
best books out there. I'm so sad
They're
I don't have mine
amazing.
anymore.
I I I found one that I got rid of, and I was like, I have to get it back. I bought it
Hmm.
on eBay. They're amazing, and I got a hold of those, and it was a random one, and I learned a lot from that. And I was at that age where like you pick up the weirdest stuff really well,
Yeah.
and I picked up some of it really well. But I don't know. You are not the generation for this book, but maybe you've heard of the Infamy because it was a Scholastic book that
Hmm.
came out in I think 2003. It is the Katie Coop How to Draw Manga book. It is infamous because a 16-year-old girl in England made it, and it ended up in Scholastic somehow.
Wow.
And I have such nostalgia for it. It taught me some really great things and some atrocious things because this was a 16-year-old girl teaching, children 5 years younger than her how to draw. And she's great. I follow her to this day. There's a little infamy with that book, but those were the two things that got me started. I was not one to like copy the art of comics because very early on, someone had told me that's not what you're supposed to do. It's bad to copy. And I don't know if it was in the like, that's copyright infringement or in the like, the trolls on DeviantArt will call you the worst names ever if you do that. But so I didn't do that. But my current style is started being like derived from a couple of Gainax anime. If you look at my like Anarchy Dreamers, like the really early pages, you see the influence of a very specific anime called Panty and Stocking, which is a Japanese take on like Jenny Tartakovsky cartoons.
Okay.
And if you're a young person, like a high schooler, and you're watching this show, don't watch that right now. If you're a little older, but it was inspired by the show Drawn Together, which I watched when I was far too young. It's something, but the style, it is the most stylish show I've ever seen, and that's how I wanted to draw. And then when I was backtracking, the first anime that made me be like, I like anime is Fooly Cooly, or as we knew it at the time, FLCL, which is amazing. And every time I watch it, I discover something new. And I just really like the style of that. And it's this weird thing where like I was very inspired by basically this one group of studio animators and artists over different shows, and the style influence shows in my art all over the place. The way I draw now developed a lot during the pandemic. I went from being like very cartoony still and even like almost a little like Steven Universe inspired, to working on a book that was not black and white but monotone, which is Marshmallow Horns, my romance series. And in order to work in black and white, you either have to be super simple or you have to be a little bit more detailed than what I was doing before because you can't rely on color anymore.
Yeah.
And it just kind of grew from there. And now I'm doing something that looks very, very, very manga inspired. It always has been, but it's looking way more manga inspired than it ever did before because it's in black and white. So
yeah.
It's a weird little adventure we've been on.
Let's see, I got here. The art style of video always won me over.
Thank you.
Listen, you do great work. That's why, I was looking at your Instagram earlier today. Just, I was doing my prep for the show, and did I see correctly? You have something like 34,000 followers?
37.
37. Okay, sorry. No.
No, because it was. No. You want to know how that happened? It was weird. It was wild. I posted a piece of art so pandemic happened. I went from working as like a teacher in a museum to suddenly being on a supply line driving into New Rochelle when they were like walling off the city because it was the epicenter of COVID. So I went from being like a pretty like normal person to being a very abnormal person very quickly during a really abnormal time.
Yeah.
So I was trying to make art that made me feel better. And I did this art for Caring as Punk, which I probably going to go loop into some other stuff we'll talk about later. And this picture got super popular. It got like 20,000 likes where I had only gotten, a couple hundred on pieces at my most popular before. And then like the Nazis came for me because they were like, how dare you take punk and make it about caring? It's not punk. And they all have like swastikas and like they're for their pictures, and I'm like, what is happening here? So then these fights would happen in my comment section, which feeds the algorithm, and all of a sudden I had like 10,000 followers, and I was like, what just happened? And it just kind of grew from there. And then I had a piece blow up in March. It was a meme redraw, and that blew up because people either thought it was really funny or they were upset that the race of a character changed in the meme. But I was like, well, it's not a redraw. I just drew my characters as these random people on a subway, and the algorithm is fascinating. Is all I have to say.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I will say, when I was on, not that I'm off it, but when I was on Facebook and I would post artwork, it happens more when I post a picture of my cat or food. I get more views for some reason, not my artwork. But when I would post artwork, I was starting to hit like, high numbers, 100,
Yeah.
and then this is, I guarantee you, this is what happened. I complained about a TV series one day, and that TV series went into, oh God, over 150 comments. And ever since then, when I post artwork, I'm like, oh, now I'm getting 20, and I'm getting 15, and I'm like, oh, they because of my, I guess,
Hmm.
anti point of view of this show I complained about, they kind of changed me, and I was like, oh, okay, whatever,
You
is what it
found
is.
some of your own people. You found some mortal enemies. It works out, you know. And is that
Well,
not the life that you're
yeah.
supposed to lead?
Hey, listen, it is what it is. Facebook and Instagram are now my immortal enemies, I guess.
I'm not gonna lie. There are periods of time where, like, I open Instagram and I see I have a comment and my heart drops because I'm very scared at someone about to call me. Not scared. I'm just preparing myself for someone to say something like abhorrent to me, something that is just horrifying to me. But then it usually isn't, and I'm just like, calm
Yeah.
down, you'll be okay.
Oh, I never care about comments. I'll be honest. I got a comment the other day. I won't say who it's from because you follow me on Facebook. You can go on and see it. But I posted a little silly, May the Fourth be with you
Hmm.
post, and someone made a comment on it, and it was just a negative comment, and or not really negative, but it was a comment that wasn't needed.
Okay.
And I'm just like, I haven't deleted it. I don't care. I just left it up, but you know some people just like to cause trouble on those things.
They
You
do.
know, it's
It's I keep most of the bad comments up too. Sometimes they're a little like, I don't want other people to see this comment because it's horrifying, so I get
yeah,
rid of it. But most of the time I let it simmer. And then sometimes, usually, like, a teenager who has a lot of self-confidence comes out of the woodwork and just wrecks that person.
yeah,
And I'm like, "Oh, thank you,
yeah.
random child. I appreciate your."
Yeah. No, I had a guy just knock like 4 or 5 of my drawings within 10 minutes,
Oh,
and then I had another post like the next day, and it was, I guess he liked it. He goes, "Well, one out of whatever is like a fluke." I'm like, "Oh, okay." His first comment was, "Your work is pretty good for someone who is not formally trained." And I hold a master's in studio art. I'm
that's
basically have a degree that says, "Hey, I know how to paint and draw." You know?
yeah. Oh yeah. What a weird thing to
Yeah, it was
say.
just the weirdest thing. I didn't let it bother me. I didn't care. I'm just like, this guy, whatever. He wants to be angry, let him be angry or something.
There's
But
other stuff going on in his life
yeah,
that is making him that way. So
exactly. I try to stay positive. That's my
same.
that's my thing. But because we're already at almost an hour and a half.
Sorry,
I
I
want
can talk.
no. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. I just don't want to keep you because I know you got to get up. I get to sleep in a little bit before my day job starts. Um, so here's what I want to also talk about.
Hmm.
You are moving into clothing. You're
Yeah.
becoming, or not becoming, but you are a streetwear designer now.
Yes.
I have seen the photo. I didn't show it, but I used it in the ad of you with the hat that says
Hmm.
"Punk is caring," which,
Caring is punk.
oh, caring is punk. I'm sorry,
Yep.
caring is punk. I apologize. But you are taking. Is that what your theme is? Taking ideas of punk and making it more of a, I don't want to say more of, but just a more positive uh, look.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. So caring is punk actually comes from Anarchy Dreamers. It's a throwaway comment on, like, the 12th page of the comic, where the line is actually caring is punk as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
And it's said in a fight between not a fight, an argument between two of the characters. And the idea is really that, in our world, which really is full of hate and really pushes us to be in competition with each other unnecessarily and pushes us to really look down on other people, it is a radical act to care about someone or to care about
Mm-hmm.
your community. And that is something I feel very strongly. And basically, that's the idea behind Caring is Punk, is that it is, in a world full of hate, is a radical act to care. And you can say that's care about your community, care about other people, care about yourself even, which is kind of an even more radical variation on that. And that's my whole thing. So I call the streetwear brand Caring is Punk. And we are currently as of like right now, like in the studio, I have the devil beanies, which are the one I was wearing in that one photo, and my followers have seen those forever. They got stuck in customs right before Anime NYC, but then I had them for the holiday season. I have patches, I have tote bags. Right now, like literally 2 hours ago, I was talking with the t-shirt printer. I have run a very small number of shirts, basically for myself and friends and family to test the quality. We'll be doing a Kickstarter. I'm looking at mid-June. Might push it to July. To print these t-shirts, and also snapback baseball caps. I was just talking to the baseball cap people today. All made in America, all made in Brooklyn specifically. And yeah, and my hope with this concept, clearly not now because I'm not going to make a lot of money off of this for a while, but my idea is that like down the line, I'd like to start some kind of a charity. I'd like to give back to community organizations. Outside of comics, my career has been entirely about public service. I work for the park system. I've worked in children's museums, like even though those are like they're nonprofits, and I've worked for government, and everything I do is about giving something to the community at low or no cost. I teach after school programs. I have gone into parts of New York City that we were told we needed to be on a train before it got dark and walk in groups, to go to libraries, to teach science. And I'm not a science person, but to teach science activities to kids for free. And it's been a wild ride. But so with everything that I do, I always have this idea that I want to give back somehow, even though I do not come from a background of, immense privilege or anything financially. I've got a family who loves me, and I'm very, very privileged to have that. And basically, I just want to make something that people feel confident in, that they can spread the message of caring about other people. And down the line, I would like this idea, this brand, this company to be able to give back to the community.
That is fantastic. I gotta say, I love that. I really do, because I did similar jobs to what you did when I was younger, before I went into art full time. And and before my health issues stopped me, basically the pandemic really started, I used to go visit hospitals and draw with kids and stuff. I loved doing that. It was one of my most favorites. I would go maybe, hold on, what's going on? My computer was starting to fall asleep. It's never done that before. No, it's fully charged though. I don't know. Anyway, it was I'm not going to really talk about it, but I did that, and due to health issues is the only reason I stopped. But I think it's fantastic when you can give back. As I told you before we went on, and I've mentioned on the show, I grew up with a lot of health issues, and it's when I do my work, I'll be honest. This is a quick short story about me. When I was 8 years old, that's when we found out about my medical issue. And I stayed in the hospital for a week and had tests done. And and there's really nothing there. When, now children's sections of hospitals are colorful and there's lots of stuff to do. Back then it was boring, and you sat in your room and basically watched TV, and you're lucky if you had a deck of cards. I remember my being scared and stuff. But my dad was a guidance counselor at the time, and the secretary put together, or the secretaries in the office put together a bunch of stuff for me. In there was a Mad magazine, and that was my first introduction to Mad. That's where I discovered Sergio Aragonés as my all-time favorite artist, and has been following his career ever since. But that laughter I got stopped making me scared, and that's why earlier when I said I don't care if you laugh at me or with me, as long as you laugh, I did my job. Every time I draw, I think back to that, and I feel like I'm drawing for not just for me, but every kid who's stuck in a hospital bed who can't do what they want to do. And so every time I draw, I feel like I'm creating something for them. And when I'm done with these books, I do plan on donating some to hospitals, to children's hospitals, because I know what it's like to be that sick kid. And since I can't go and visit them anymore, I want them to have something.
That's amazing. That's the goodness we need to see more of in this world.
So I totally respect what you're doing and love what you're doing, and I want to I hope to see more of it come out of that.
That's the hope.
Yeah. So I don't really have any more questions for you right now. The only thing I will ask you is when you're ready to do your next Kickstarter, whether it's for a book or for the streetwear, I'd like you to come on and promote it on here.
I got you. I can handle that.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome. I really appreciate that. So with that, I think we're going to wrap up. I'm going to drop you backstage if you don't mind. Just hang out for a few. But before I go, is there anything you'd like to say?
No, just thank you for having me on. This has been a wonderful experience. I know I can't see the comment section all the time, but I know there's some people there who are my friends and support my work, and I want to thank you guys for coming out tonight too. And yeah, hope everybody has a great night. It's been a pleasure.
Right. Thank you. Let me drop you backstage. All right. So first off, this was a really fun experience. I like I said, I've known Emily's work for a while. I've read a little bit of it. I've never really had the chance to take a deep dive in there. I'm going to now, but I have read stuff. I've been a fan, and just talking to her has made me even more of a fan today. I want to thank everybody who watched live, everybody who participated in the comments. Adam, you still haven't put your webcomic in, but I'm going to look you up. I'd love to see you be promoted in here. We'll talk, though. Everybody, thank you. I have another show coming up next week. I think you're going to really like it. I got a big surprise towards the end of the month on the show. And everybody who watches later, thank you. Don't forget, I've done a few shows. I have a new show, actually. Well, not a new show, but a new series I'm going to do twice a month. I did it yesterday with Big Bang Comics characters. It's me drawing other people's characters, other publishers' characters. So I started with Big Bang, and we'll see who I do in a couple of weeks. All right. Oh, you snuck it in early. I didn't see it. I'll definitely watch it. All right, guys. You guys, I got to get going. Thanks again. I will see you soon. Have a great rest of your day, week, or wherever you're watching. All right. Bye, guys.